Those of you who watched the Giants take on the Vikings in last week's wildcard round of the playoffs are probably very familiar with Dexter Lawrence, because he was in the backfield getting after either Kirk Cousins or Dalvin Cook on the majority of Minnesota's offensive snaps. Lawrence's dominant performance was capped off by this game-sealing fourth down play where Kirk Cousins was forced to check the ball down because all 340 pounds of Dexter Lawrence was right in his face before the downfield route concept had a chance to develop. This was one of many game-changing plays Lawrence made in that wildcard game against Minnesota, and we've become accustomed to this type of performance from him this season. Lawrence finished the regular season ranking second to only Chris Jones among defensive tackles and quarterback pressures with 63. He also ranked second in pass rush win rate among defensive tackles who rushed the passer at least 300 times, and he ranked 7th at his position in sacks with 9. His impact was felt in run defense as well, totaling 28 stops against the run and posting a stop rate of 8.3%. Lawrence's role on a 2022 Giants defense that has exceeded expectations earned him second-team All-Pro honors, but he hasn't always been this dominant. Lawrence's first 3 years in the league saw him produce average numbers on mostly subpar Giants defenses. He wasn't a bust, but he wasn't quite the player he was supposed to be coming out of college either. That all changed when Brian Daboll and company came to town. Now, before I get into what makes Lawrence such a problem for opposing offenses, I want to backtrack a little bit. In the first 3 years of his career, Lawrence aligned primarily in the B-gap as a 3 or 4-eye technique defensive tackle, but this year he's aligned in the A-gap as a nose tackle on the vast majority of his snaps. This is a very important distinction because the two alignments often entail completely different responsibilities. True nose tackles have been declared by many to be obsolete in today's NFL because traditionally, nose tackles are physical specimens of extreme size and strength who are on the field to stop the run. Because the position prioritizes size over mobility, nose tackles usually don't offer much when it comes to rushing the passer. And in today's passing league, everyone on the defensive line has to be able to get to the quarterback. The vast majority of teams still have a nose tackle or two on their roster, but they're usually specialized players, on the field only on early downs with the sole purpose of stopping the run. That, however, is not the case for Lawrence. In the 2022 regular season, he was one of only 4 defensive tackles who played at least 300 snaps and aligned primarily in the A-gap. But Lawrence was head and shoulders above the, albeit small, group of competitors at his position in terms of production, especially when it comes to getting to the quarterback. Among nose tackles, Lawrence not only finished first in pass rush win rate, he more than doubled that of the nose tackle in second place, Mike Purcell, who posted a win rate of just 7.7%. In his first year playing a somewhat new role, Lawrence blew the competition out of the water. So when I turned on his tape this week, I set out to answer 2 questions. First, why did the Giants coaching staff change his role from a B-gap defensive tackle to an A-gap nose tackle? And second, what caused his explosion in production? Now, when I was going through some of Lawrence's older tape, a problematic tendency popped up over and over again in run defense, specifically when the opposing offense called zone scheme rushing concepts. On this play from back in week 2 of the 2021 season, Lawrence lined up in a 4-eye technique opposite the inside shoulder of Washington's right tackle, and the Commanders called an RPO where the run option is mid-zone to the right, which tells each offensive lineman to take a play-side step at the snap, and to double-team as many down linemen as possible before advancing to the linebackers. The objective of the offensive lineman is to seal their man inside, creating a lane for the running back, while the defensive linemen are trying to maintain outside leverage, forcing the ball carrier to cut back into the teeth of the defense. It's essentially a battle for leverage in the trenches, and if the defense keeps gap integrity, they're likely to stop the run at or around the line of scrimmage. Initially, there isn't anything wrong with the way Lawrence plays this. He gets his helmet positioned on the outside of the opposing blocker, which actually forces Antonio Gibson to look for a cutback lane to his left. But when Gibson doesn't find that cutback lane, he shuffles back outside. When Gibson was indecisive in the backfield, Lawrence should have maintained outside leverage and relied on his teammates to make the tackle after the cutback was forced. But instead, he tried to fall back into the B-gap, which caused him to lose the edge and give up an 11-yard gain. Lawrence's tendency to try to play both gaps at once on zone scheme run plays was an issue for the Giants defense in the first 3 years of his career, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. He would get caught trying to fall back into a secondary gap, but the defense only paid for it because that wasn't what he was asked to do. So when the new coaching staff took over in New York, Lawrence was put in a role that took advantage of his ability to play 2 gaps at the same time. Take a look at this play from Week 11 against Detroit. The Lions called a wide zone run concept, the principles of which are similar to that of the last play you saw. Each offensive lineman will take a play side step, and the running back will read the leverage of the defensive lineman from outside to inside. Post-snap, you can see Lawrence attacking the block with proper leverage. His helmet is on the outside of the centers, he keeps his feet moving with a wide base, and he has his eyes on the running back in the backfield. Lawrence knows that Lions running back Jamal Williams will make his cut based on the leverage of the defensive lineman. So when Williams gets to him, Lawrence knows that his read will tell him to cut back. Before Williams even cuts, Lawrence is already falling back into the opposite side A-gap, so when Williams does make his cut, Lawrence is there to meet him at the line of scrimmage. Throughout the first 3 years of his NFL career, Lawrence was an average run defender in a role that did not maximize his skill set. Now that he has the freedom to play both A-gaps in certain situations and be more reactive, he's become one of the most dominant run-defending defensive tackles in the NFL. He's shown massive improvement as a run defender this season, and the catalyst for his jump in production when defending the run was the coaching staff altering his role. His explosion as a pass rusher, however, is a result of vast improvement from Lawrence himself. The technical nuances that go into pass rushing, especially from the interior, cannot be overstated. That's part of the reason why dominant interior rushers are so much more rare than dominant edge rushers. Interior players get double teamed more often, they have way less space to build up speed for their rush, and they're inherently less mobile than edge rushers because of their responsibility in run defense. But Lawrence is outperforming just about every defensive lineman in the league, regardless of position, in terms of getting to the quarterback. And that's a result of his unwavering commitment to refining the technical aspects of his game. When Lawrence first came into the league, he was too heavily reliant on a traditional bull rush to get to the quarterback, but he's slowly expanded his arsenal of moves since then to include a forklift and a club rip combo. Last season, the club rip was his go-to, and he still uses that move frequently. But this season, Lawrence has taken his pass rush ability to a whole new level. Not because of a new move necessarily, but because of a slight modification to pretty much every move he executes that isn't a bull rush. When I watched Lawrence's 2022 tape, the same little technical detail kept popping up over and over again, which you can see on this play from back in Week 10 against Houston. Lawrence is aligned in a 2-eye technique on the inside shoulder of Texans right guard AJ Cann, and there's a lot that goes into this rep, so I'm going to slow it down and take you through step by step. Houston called play action here, which tells the offensive lineman to take what's called a jump set in an effort to sell the run fake. When the ball is snapped, you can see each lineman take a small step up toward the line of scrimmage and shoot their hands. Lawrence felt the jump set and attacked it with a club swim combo. He struck Cann's outside arm with his left and swam with his right, but Cann maintained a strong grip on Lawrence's chest, so he was forced to reset and start over. Lawrence then struck Cann's chest with his right to keep him at an arm's length and loosen that grip, which prompted Cann to lean forward and counter Lawrence's power. Lawrence then went for another strike again to Cann's outside arm, which was strong enough to disengage, and he swam with his right to finish the move. But when I rewind this again, I want you to pay real close attention to Lawrence's footwork. When he swam with his right arm, he simultaneously crossed over with his right foot. That made it impossible for Cann to reset his hands into Lawrence's chest and gave Lawrence a free path to the quarterback. The synchronization of Lawrence's feet and hands showed up time and time again in that wildcard game against Minnesota as well. On this play from the second quarter, Lawrence lined up as a tilted nose and a one technique on the outside shoulder of the center, and I want you to pay close attention to his left hand and left foot. After clubbing with his right arm to disengage from Viking center Garrett Bradbury, Lawrence swam with his left arm and simultaneously took a crossover step with his left foot to prevent Bradbury from resetting his hands. In an effort to prevent his quarterback from being leveled, Bradbury went full bear hug, which drew a holding penalty. It took the better part of 4 years, but Lawrence is finally beginning to reach his full potential. And considering the fact that he keeps improving year over year, this probably isn't even the peak. His development serves as a great reminder of how difficult it is to evaluate young defensive tackles in today's NFL. Young interior players are often subjected to criticism as a result of unfair expectations early in their careers. It takes a really long time for these guys to develop. And just this year, we've seen both Lawrence and Quinnen Williams become the game wreckers we all thought they would be coming out of college 4 years into their pro careers. I am super excited for New York's matchup with Philadelphia this week because we get to see Lawrence take on one of the best offensive lines that the league has to offer. And when these two teams played back in Week 14, Lawrence gave this Eagles offense a lot of issues. This matchup gives us a lot to look forward to, but I, for one, will have my eyes glued to the bloodbath that will go down at the line of scrimmage. But that's all I've got for today. If you'd like to support the channel, you can find links to my Patreon and Twitter in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to have you back for the next one. So until then, peace.